Hello, my name is Bryce Ward, and I'm the Fairbanks North Star Borough Mayor. The state of Alaska and the Fairbanks North Star Borough have all experienced some significant challenges due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In spite of these challenges, the Fairbanks North Star Borough has maintained our mission to serve, lead, thrive. Here's a little bit of information about the CARES Act funding that we've received and how we have responded to COVID-19 as a community and as an organization.
$568 million. That's how much the state of Alaska allocated in direct municipal relief. The Fairbanks North Star Borough received just over $24.6 million from the state of Alaska as pass-through funds from the federal government. All CARES Act funding was subject to restrictions outlined in the U.S. Department of Treasury guidance and the grant agreement signed with the state of Alaska. The borough used this guidance to develop the borough programs to ensure regulatory and grant compliance. Here are some of the key aspects that the borough relied on. The CARES Act requires that the payments from the Coronavirus Relief Fund only be used to cover expenses that 1. Are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. 2. Were not accounted for in the budget most recently approved as of March 27, 2020 for the state or government. And 3. Were incurred between March 1st and December 30th, 2020.
The guidance that follows sets forth the Department of the Treasury's interpretation of these limitations on the permissible use of fund payments. The requirement that expenditures be incurred due to the public health emergency means that expenditures must be used for actions taken to respond to the public health emergency. These may include expenditures incurred to allow the state, territorial, local, or tribal government to respond directly to the emergency, such as by addressing medical or public health needs, as well as expenditures incurred to respond to second-order effects of the emergency, such as by providing economic support to those suffering from employment or business interruptions due to COVID-19 related business closures. Funds may not be used to fill shortfalls in government revenue to cover expenditures that would not otherwise qualify under the statute. Although a broad range of uses is allowed, revenue replacement is not a permissible use of fund payments. The statute also specifies that expenditures using fund payments must be necessary. The Department of the Treasury understands this term broadly to mean that the expenditure is reasonably necessary for its intended use in the reasonable judgment of the government officials responsible for spending fund payments. Due to the borough having a narrow authority in a public health emergency, many of our programs were developed around guidance allowing for economic support for businesses and organizations. Further guidance is provided for in Treasury documents titled Coronavirus Relief Funds for State, Territorial, and Local Government and Coronavirus Relief Fund Frequently Asked Questions.
Business Interruption Grants, BIG, provided up to $40,000 per eligible business or nonprofit to offset business interruptions or closures during COVID-19. The City of North Pole partnered with the borough to offer the BIG programs to North Pole businesses and nonprofits. Personal Protection Equipment Grants, or PEG, reimbursed up to $1,500 in costs for PPE and other measures to mitigate the spread of coronavirus, including cleaning supplies, cleaning services, physical barriers between employees and/or customers, such as plexiglass screens, and signage to promote social distancing. Healthcare Impact Grants, HCIG, provided relief and assistance to healthcare businesses and nonprofits that have been adversely affected by COVID-19 and meet the requirements of the CARES Act. The Fairbanks North Star Borough has received 406 BIG, 48 PEG, and 5 HCIG applications. All of the borough's programs have been closed as of November 19th, and the BIG is currently oversubscribed. Mayor Ward recently requested that the state of Alaska provide additional funding to the FNSB in order to fully fund all of the outstanding BIG requests, and, if funding allowed, provide an additional $5 million to the school district.
Here are some significant dates from the pandemic relating to the Fairbanks North Star Borough. March 11th, Governor Dunleavy issues declaration of public health disaster emergency. March 20th, Mayor Ward declares a disaster emergency. FNSB activates EOC. April 28th, FNSB COVID-19 Economic Recovery Plan adopted. June 18th, CARES ordinance passed, established FNSB CARES relief grant programs. September 8th, FNSB BIG and PPEG grant applications go live. November 19th, BIG and PPEG applications are closed.
Let's talk to a few of our community members about what CARES Act funding has meant to their businesses and organizations.
My name is Kelly Oines with Rainbows Inn Children's Center in North Pole, and thankfully we qualified for the BIG grant through the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Without that, we probably would have had to close our doors. We have been providing quality care in the North Pole area for 25 years, and when the pandemic hit in March, our numbers dropped drastically from 100% enrollment to 25% enrollment. Slowly they have picked back up, and currently we're at about a 58% enrollment. And again, because of the BIG grant through the Fairbanks North Star Borough, we have been able to keep all of our employees working full-time and keep our doors open for our community.
Hi, my name is Chuck Lincoln. I'm the owner of Advanced Printing. We started this business in 1980. This year started off like any other year. We had such high hopes. Then March hit, and I watched the bank account go from here to here to here to here. It was to the point where I was going to have to lay someone off because there was no funds. That's when we heard about the first round of the PPP funds from the federal government. We received that, and that gave us the boost that got us over the top. We were able to go without laying anybody off. Then as things kept going, the economy still wasn't getting any better, and then we were able to apply for and receive the big grant money as well. That was like a booster shot that kept us going, and I know that there's a lot of other people in this same boat, and that money is greatly needed and greatly appreciated.
My name is Colt Chase, and I'm the Executive Director of Fairbanks Youth Soccer Association. This has been a challenging year for all businesses in the state of Alaska, and nonprofit youth sports organizations are no exception. It can take years to build up savings to prepare for a rainy day, so when a monsoon like 2020 hits, it can be really devastating. But we were fortunate to receive funding through the Fairbanks North Star Borough's CARES Act grant programs, and because of this, we've been able to weather the storm in ways that otherwise wouldn't have been possible. Thanks to this support, FYSA has a future that won't have to involve massive increases to participation costs for the families in our programs, these families who are themselves still recovering from the year. So thank you to the Borough for fulfilling your duties in this challenging and unexpected assignment to be stewards of the CARES Act funds on behalf of organizations like mine.
So the pandemic has been obviously really hard on the business. In April, we had to shut down for a couple of weeks because we simply couldn't get personal protective equipment and sanitizers and things like that. I spent all of my savings to make sure that I paid my employees while we were closed. And then when we reopened, business was at maybe 40% of what it had been the previous year. And we've recovered a little bit, but we're still down 30 to 40% depending on the day. So getting that business interruption grant from the CARES grant really helped me keep my employees and make sure I didn't have to fire anyone or lay them off. And I have a small crew, and I really want to take care of them, so that was really important to me.
The bottom line is, in the middle of a pandemic, we stood up these programs to provide assistance to our businesses and organizations that are the backbone of this community.
Here is a list of the following appropriations accepted by the Borough Assembly so far this year. The FNSB Economic Development Commission took on the work of developing the Interior Alaska COVID-19 Impact and Recovery Plan, which was adopted by the Commission in April. This valuable tool has been widely used during the recovery. The recovery plan includes tasks to help mitigate impacts and work towards recovery, as well as identifying indicators to track the progress of economic recovery efforts.
I was frustrated that the legislature hasn't been able to provide more support for second-class boroughs who do not have health and social services powers. In particular, the lack of a statewide mask mandate is making it very hard for the borough to manage the spread of the pandemic. As a second-class borough, we cannot institute a mask mandate, but the state, the governor, or the legislature could. I appreciated the opportunity to provide funds for small businesses who were impacted by COVID and the decrease in tourism, especially the decrease in foot traffic from people choosing to stay inside. I think that we help support these businesses, but I worry that it's not enough. I would like to be able to pay bars and restaurants to remain closed. Obviously, they can't remain closed and still stay afloat unless there's outside support. And the amount of money that the borough was given through the CARES Act was not sufficient to support all these small businesses. I'm also very worried about the impact the pandemic is going to have on the Fairbanks North Star Borough as a municipality. I'm expecting we will see more foreclosures. I'm expecting that we will see more people continue to be out of work, and there wasn't any CARES money to actually support the working of municipalities.
I've been asked to share a few thoughts on the CARES Act funding and how that was implemented here in the borough. I think first the positive, we were able to get almost all of the money out the door and into the community by the end of the year, and we were able to have a fairly robust program that provided relief to some of the core pillars of our local community, including the hospital, education, and small businesses who were struggling this year. I think some of the frustrations with the program were just the amount of time it took to get everything implemented, understanding the regulations, and really getting the public engaged and letting them know what we had to offer. It just seemed like most of the push came towards the very end.
The approach the borough has taken in response to the pandemic has worked thus far. Our numbers are down, private schools were allowed to open, and soon the public schools will follow in with in-person learning. Small businesses received grants, and recreation activities have begun to reopen. Buses are still free, and now with the vaccine, soon life can return to normal.
AS 2904-020 provides that a general law municipality has legislative powers conferred by law. AS 29 does not confer upon second-class boroughs all other powers not otherwise prohibited by law. The borough also exercises those powers approved by the voters in our jurisdictions. Understanding the powers second-class boroughs do have is necessary in order to analyze the effect of a local disaster declaration. AS 26-23-140 provides that the effect of a local disaster emergency is to activate the response and recovery aspects of any and all applicable local or interjurisdictional disaster emergency plans, and to authorize the furnishing of aid and assistance under those plans. Importantly, the lack of a power means that the second-class boroughs cannot legally provide the facility, service, or regulations related to that power, even in a disaster emergency. During the public health emergency, the state of Alaska is the public health authority.
The borough is doing our best to serve our community and to ensure that we are postured to succeed when the pandemic is over. We hope this information is helpful in understanding our community's response to the COVID-19 pandemic.